I didn't have to go far to find today's project. It was just up the stairs in my attic. It's been up there collecting dust for years. So I took it downstairs for some restoration. And here it is in the daylight. It's an old solid oak table, and the finish is in bad shape, so it will need to be completely stripped and refinished. But it's also got a broken foot, as you can see here on the left. And that's what I'll be doing today. So first I had to remove the leg, and on this table it was pretty easy because everything just screws or bolts together. So all I needed to do was remove these wing nuts and then unscrew the lower shelf, and the legs came right off. And here's the leg that's being repaired. And here it is next to one of the other legs, so you can see what it's supposed to look like. Although none of the legs are identical, they're all very similar, but there is some variations between them. So I'm not concerned about getting this leg to perfectly match the other legs, since none of them perfectly match each other. My plan was to glue a new piece of wood onto the broken leg, but to do that I first would need to create a flat surface. And as you can see, the leg has that concave section, so I would need to fill that in to get the surface all level and flat. And to do that, I'm using some epoxy putty. And basically you just knead this together, mix it together until the two parts combine evenly, and then you're ready to use it. And here I've put the epoxy into that concave section and flattened it out, and I used a razor to just kind of clean off any excess. And then once it was dry, I got it flat with some files and some sandpaper. And here's the piece of wood that I cut to glue onto the leg. And I had to put that little lip on the bottom because some of the lower portion of the leg was missing. So it would have been a little short without that. And here you can see it next to one of the other legs. I used this little half pencil to trace the outline of one of the other legs onto my new piece of wood. And here I'm mixing up the epoxy, and I'm adding a little bit of brown coloring just in case any of the epoxy ends up showing in the joint. It'll just blend in more if it's brown. I'm using epoxy to glue the two pieces together because I don't have a full wood-to-wood joint since I have that epoxy wood filler already in there. So otherwise I would just use regular wood glue. And once it was dry, I took off the majority of the excess wood using this sander. And then it was time to do the round over on the edges. And basically I found where the curve began on the original part of the leg and took a pencil and tried to continue that line onto the new piece so I would know where to stop with the round over. And then I took some files and just started rounding over the edge. Just worked slow, tried not to take off too much at once. And once I got it close with the files, I took some sandpaper and just smoothed it out and tried to blend it all in. And then it was time to begin coloring the new piece of wood. And here I've already stripped the leg. I've already stripped the old finish off. So I'm wetting it down with some mineral spirits just to see what the color of the wood is once the finish is on, because that's what I want to match the new piece to. And I started with some dark walnut oil stain. And that was a good start, but wasn't quite there yet. And here I'm just putting some shellac onto that little spot of exposed wood filler. And I'm doing this so that when I put the next stain on, it won't pull off the stain that I just put on. And I'm only doing it on this spot with the filler because the stain doesn't get absorbed very well into the filler. It just kind of sits on top, so it would be pulled off easily. Whereas with the wood sections, it gets absorbed pretty well, and once it's dry, it's not going to come off. Next, I put some walnut gel stain over the whole leg, and you can see that the new piece is still a bit lighter than the rest of it. So after the stain had dried, I came back with a foam brush and just kind of dabbed a little bit of the gel stain onto the new piece until it started to darken up a bit. And I just kept doing this, letting it dry and then putting more on as much as I felt it needed. And once I put the stain on with the foam brush, I went over it again with this small dry brush just to blend it in a little bit more. And once the stain is dry, it won't appear as red and glossy. And once the top coat goes on, which in this case is polyurethane, oil-based polyurethane, it will blend everything together really nicely. Here's the finished leg, and I like how it came out. I think it looks good. And the color at the bottom of the leg is a little bit darker than the rest of the leg, but if you look at the other legs, they're all like that. The color darkens a bit towards the bottom, so I think it blends in well. Stay tuned for part 2, where I refinish the top of the table. Thanks for watching.